It's totally okay to admit it. If you've clicked on this video, you've probably read the social media reports that Siegfried sucks. You've confirmed it with some tough games of your own, and you've decided to sell her for silver instead of letting her just rust in your port. But what if there were a few key things that you could do to transform her from a hardship to play into a fun and lucrative one, or possibly even a workhorse in your fleet that scores consistently good results in both matches and missions? On today's premiere episode of World of Warships Legends Hardships, we'll help you take your Siegfried from zero in the direction of hero by giving you 3 tips to manage 2 very different sides of her personality. So what exactly makes Siegfried a hardship to play for the average Joe? First, she's a supercruiser, which by definition could be described as something akin to an enigma wrapped in a paradox. She's truly difficult to understand right out of the box because she's neither fish nor fowl, with no similar ships and legends to compare her to outside of maybe being a larger version of Graf Spee. Second, she looks like she should be really tanky given her size and bulk, especially having a hull that is pretty similar to battleship Gneisenau with its turtleback armor scheme and all. But her bow armor has suffered shrinkage in the transition from PC to Legends, moving down 2 tiers from 9 to 7, so she's not nearly as durable as you'd think on either her bow and stern or her sides, and this is especially true when facing legendary tier ships. And third, even though her main battery barrels, which are shared with Bismarck, are the biggest cruiser guns in the game, she only has 6, which makes ammo choices and good aiming absolutely critical. And her rate of fire is closer to that of a faster firing battleship than that of a cruiser. A final factor is that Siegfried is just really large for a cruiser. It seems like the second she is spotted, she gets lit up like a Christmas tree with focus fire, crossfire, and getting set on fire. To play her well, you have to realize you're going to attract a ton of attention and are a preferred HP pinata for the enemy team in just about every match if you don't constantly monitor your positioning. Let's quickly review how we can cover up some weak spots and equip Siegfried for success before she even leaves port with regard to commander and modification selections. Our approach is to maintain a true balance between survival and attack qualities in our build, with Azure Lane Hipper, who has a cruiser focus, as our main commander choice. From a survivability perspective, we address damage reduction with an inspiration from William Tennant and Hipper's Firewall base trait, add Ingenious to let us know how many ships are actively targeting us, and round things out with modification choices to enhance concealment and agility. And from an attack perspective, we address our battleship caliber main battery reload time by choosing Francesco Mimbelli as the second inspiration, and add further buffs to main battery accuracy and range, AP shell penetration and damage, before doubling down on reload and accuracy again with our modification selections. Overall, buffing the durability of our ship and the main battery reload of Siegfried is really important. And secondly, we get another pop by emphasizing her strong AP shells. Now that Siegfried is set up and ready to do battle, let's move on to 3 tactical rules of do this, not that, to improve her in-game performance. Point number 1. Do protect your armor like you are playing a cruiser at all times, not being more lax about it like you're driving a battleship. This is because she is a large, high-priority target, and she cannot rely on her armor against most enemies, especially in the early stages of a match when you will get focused by multiple ships and caught in multi-directional crossfire. This makes your first turns during the initial deployment of the match incredibly critical. You don't want to go too far towards a cap, and you should not run broadside to the enemy line for any length of time. And please don't even consider trying to bow tank your way out of an early engagement. It's generally best to hold your fire and stay dark until you are angled or turning away from the cap when you fire your first salvo, so you don't give a large, flat, broadside target. Not heeding these warnings could cause you to literally melt faster than butter to a hot knife. I know this because experience is a hard teacher, and you can see it in these examples where I get taken to the woodshed for lackadaisical initial turns and positioning. But enough of that. Let's talk about the positives. A good initial deployment, often an arcing turn across the cap you are supporting at a slight distance away, allows for preserving your hit point pool for the first few minutes of the match, and getting some help spotting where the enemy ships are and if they have support before you decide to press their position. You can also kite away for a brief period and stop firing to go dark and break detection if things get really hot, as Siegfried's concealment value is actually pretty good for such a large ship. And when you are engaging, you should always try to manage your damage taken with proper angling, about 45 degrees away from bow on, and your heels. But it's best to assume you have armor that is no better than a cruiser, and to avoid crossfires and showing your broadsides to any battleships at all costs, especially with regard to the legendaries. And on to point number 2, and do this, not that. Do shoot mainly armor-piercing rounds, not high explosive. Having only 6 guns that have close to a battleship's reload time really reduces the value of shooting HE rounds, because you only have a 34% fire chance to begin with for German HE, and only 6 total chances to start a fire per salvo, given that all of the shells hit. On the flip side, Siegfried's AP is pretty dang good. Remember that with Bismarck's gun, she has a maximum AP base alpha strike of 11,600 points before bonuses when she hits a citadel. Our commander skills buff this damage value, penetration, and accuracy too. When facing enemy battleships or even tougher cruisers that are angled, you can stick with armor piercing, but make sure you shoot at the superstructure above the armor belt. You can score good chunk damage of over 4,000 per round, and wear down opponents with AP salvos that are tougher to heal back than fire damage. Rip broadsides with armor piercing anytime you have a chance, and rack up a substantial number of citadel hits and some solid damage numbers. Angled cruisers with thin armor are especially susceptible to high damage citadel hit rolls. But some exclusions to the AP first policy do apply, as usual. You'll definitely want to load up HE for vulnerable enemies hanging on by a thin thread of hit points, for destroyers, or for very lightly skinned cruisers. And lastly, for hard targets that are dug in and are bow tanking you incessantly. And finally, point number 3 of do this, not that. Do act like a battleship when you can bully enemy ships, not like a cruiser. So what situations qualify for brawling and basically taking someone's lunch money? You have workable armor when you're angled at roughly 45 degrees against a single tougher enemy, strong main battery guns, and 4 torpedoes per side that pack a wallop of 13,700 damage per fish. So definitely pursue 1v1s when enemy ships get isolated from the pack, even if they happen to be an opposing battleship. You also have a good enough rudder shift and high quality German sonar 1 to knife fight at close range against more than one lower tier ship at a time, even destroyers. And you can even avoid enemy torpedoes with a pretty high rate of success. It's just best to not expose your sides to more than 2 or 3 enemy ships in the process, which again makes this more likely a mid to later game strategy than an early one when the enemy team is still in close formation. Furthermore, when Siegfried is top tier, you can be a little bit more aggressive than when fighting in matches with all tier 7s or against legendary ships. But it's still not a good idea to get overconfident in the first few minutes of the game and get exposed early on. In this particular example on Two Brothers, I was able to use my top speed of over 33 knots to push the 1-2 line flank and take on 3 separate cruisers one by one. This set up an effective crossfire with my centrally located battleship teammates, and the ability for me to take on each ship individually without letting them gang up on me. Even though our damage total wasn't huge, we were able to roll up the flank, get 3 kills, and help our team secure the win. One single live stream had a run of Siegfried games that brought the 3 lessons we just discussed to life in rapid succession. My thing is, they both have torpedoes, so and don't have to worry about In the first game, I made a really bad deployment decision and got completely owned by two Edinburghs running in a division, taking first a torpedo and then getting pummeled with broadside AP times 2. You can really see how weak Siegfried's side armor can be in the face of same or higher tier ships. And look at my eye-popping 4,500-ish damage total. Yeehaw!
That's what happens in this ship if you make a bad deployment decision like I just did.
But in my next two games, I fared a lot better by making wiser choices at the outset of each match. With deployments, it did not cause me to be the first ship focused down.
Ships shooting at us already. Be patient. I have to show a little bit of broadside to the Nagato. Oh, there's the Citadel we're talking about.
In those games, I was able to conserve hit points to spend later in the game and become more and more of a factor as the clock ticked on.
Using the island as a shield. Now, we know we can expose this Nagato's side armor, because it's crap. Revenge! Cool, so we can bow in on the Mogami now. What's going on behind us? Looks like the Siegfried's dead. Uh-oh. Potential damage! Mogami, I love your armor, my friend, or lack thereof. Now, Siegfried, unlike Azuma, actually turns.
In each of the following matches, I had strong salvos with AP, including some key Citadel hits and aggressive plays in favorable situations that supported the team, resulting in both wins and solid individual finishes. And these games happened immediately after the baked potato we served up in the first match.
He's firing HE.
It just took some reflection and a higher level of focus and discipline following the 3 rules we just addressed to change the picture and results completely.
We don't want to be broadside to a Colorado. Oh! Got a couple good Siegfried games here. We're trying to keep the streak alive. It's target-rich environment right now. Work on at some point, though. It's gonna try to torp me down. A way better ship than Azuma. One of the premium ships that's probably lasted longer than just about any ship with regard to not getting totally powered. Tago versus Eugen. Tago is definitely up there on my list.
Beyond grabbing the wins themselves, Siegfried also shows that she is a really good ship from an XP and credit earnings perspective, and works really well in campaigns that have weekly Havoc mission sets that rely on damage dealt, potential damage taken, and ship kills, which can all be knocked out effectively by Siegfried. However, and this is a big however, be prepared for a good share of games in which you cannot carry a team of random players to victory when your team is quote-unquote challenged, and melts quickly on even just a single flank, as you are just a cruiser after all. It's extremely hard to carry against multiple overpowered targets in a cruiser of any kind. As is often the case, you're going to have your best games when you have somewhat organized and skillful teammates. When a run of games gets tough, do your best to continue to play smart and disciplined, and continue to assess and adjust your tactics after every match. Well folks, my big hope is that these thoughts on how to set up your Siegfried for success from a commander and modifications perspective, and these 3 key tactical tips will help take your games to the next level in this unique ship. So just try to keep in mind that Siegfried is not the easiest ship to play. You're not alone in that issue. And give yourself at least 25 to 30 games to get the hang of her very unique playstyle. I think you'll start to improve your results and grow in confidence and enjoyment as you do. Hey, don't forget to join us for a live stream on Twitch or on YouTube, and while you're still here, why not take a minute to check out one of our cruiser tactics guides, which will be linked in the upper corner above. As always, I hereby attempt to grant your wishes for better teammates and more wins. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I am VannKraken, and I am out.